In the far north of Burkina Faso, another village had fallen into the hands of terrorists. For weeks, the people of Cumbri had lived under fear and oppression, waiting for help that never seemed to last. When armored vehicles finally rolled into the dusty streets, the villagers braced themselves for the usual: a quick exchange of fire, a short stay, and then an inevitable retreat that left them exposed to even harsher reprisals. But this time was different. The vehicles halted with precision, surrounding the area in a well-coordinated maneuver. When the hatches opened, the sight that greeted the villagers left them stunned. It wasn't the familiar sight of male soldiers in fatigues, it was a fully armed unit of women. These weren't nurses or support staff. They were frontline fighters in desert camouflage, their movements sharp, disciplined, and deliberate. They were the Lionesses of the Sahel, Africa's first all-women special forces unit, led by Captain Aisha Ouedraogo. At 32, Aisha had already served a decade in the army and carried herself with a calm authority that made her seem larger than life. Stepping into the heart of the village, she took in the signs of occupation: graffiti on walls, abandoned makeshift command posts, and wary, frightened eyes peeking from doorways. "Secure the perimeter. Bravo team, go door to door. Charlie team, set up a medical station. Remember, our mission is not just to clear this village, but to hold it," she ordered. This was no ordinary military mission. The Lionesses were there to stay. The idea for this unit had been born months earlier inside the presidential palace. President Ibrahim Traore had grown frustrated with the cycle of brief military interventions that failed to protect communities long-term. In a tense meeting, he had rejected more foreign advisors and expensive equipment. "We need Burkina-based solutions for Burkina problem," he said. It was Colonel Mariam Sankara who made the bold suggestion: an all-female unit trained for both combat and community work. She argued that extremists' strict ideology made them vulnerable. They feared dying at the hands of women, believing it would deny them paradise. Furthermore, women soldiers could connect with female villagers, gather intelligence men could never access, and win the trust of communities long ignored by traditional forces. The proposal met resistance from some generals, who dismissed it as impractical. But Traore approved it immediately, giving Sankara 3 months to select and train 100 women, half from the military, half skilled civilians. The response was overwhelming. More than 2,000 women applied: soldiers, police officers, nurses, teachers, and survivors of extremist violence. Training outside Ouagadougou was intense. The recruits learned advanced combat skills, local languages, cultural awareness, medical aid, and strategies for building community resilience. Captain Ouedraogo, fluent in 4 local languages and deeply familiar with the realities of border life, emerged as the natural leader. "Our mission isn't just to fight," she told her troops. "It's to make sure insurgents can never return." News of the unit eventually reached foreign advisors, who doubted its effectiveness. Traore's response was blunt: "You've had over a decade to fix this problem, and it's only gotten worse. We're trying something different." 6 months later, the Lionesses' first mission brought them to Cumbri. The insurgents had fled, tipped off in advance, but the real challenge was holding the ground. In one tense encounter, Sergeant Fatima Diallo faced an elder who refused to let armed women enter his home. Instead of forcing her way in, she spoke to him respectfully in his dialect, inviting the women of the household to decide. Minutes later, the gate opened. The women inside relieved to finally speak freely. This approach became the Lionesses' strength. While some male leaders resisted their presence, the women of Cumbri embraced them, sharing vital intelligence on enemy sympathizers, weapon caches, and surveillance points. The Lionesses divided their duties. Half handled patrols and security checkpoints, while the other half rebuilt the village, reopening the schools, setting up a health clinic, and creating safe spaces for trade. Their Shadow Sister program paired each soldier with a local woman, building trust and a constant flow of real-time intelligence. 3 weeks later, insurgents launched their first counterattack. Expecting a conventional force, they were instead met with a well-prepared defense, bolstered by villagers trained in basic security. Ambushes were set along likely approach routes. When 30 attackers struck at dawn, they were swiftly defeated, 8 killed, 3 captured, the rest fleeing in disarray. Intercepted messages revealed their shock and fear at being beaten by women. Word of the victory spread quickly. When President Traore visited a month later, he found a village transformed. Markets buzzing, children in class, and residents working alongside soldiers. "The model works," Captain Ouedraogo told him, "but it takes time and resources. We're not just removing insurgents, we're removing their roots." Traore agreed, announcing the expansion of the Lionesses program to other conflict zones despite pushback from foreign advisors, human rights groups, and religious conservatives. In a national address, he defended the decision. "For too long, we have fought with foreign strategies and foreign thinking, and our people have continued to suffer. The Lionesses of the Sahel are a truly Burkinabe answer, born of our land, our culture, and our strength. They protect our communities in ways no outside force ever could." In the far north of Burkina Faso, another village had fallen into the hands of terrorists. The people waited anxiously, hoping the army would come before it was too late. In the sun-scorched north of Burkina Faso, the air was heavy with fear. Another village had fallen to terrorists, its people trapped between despair and survival. Every sound in the distance made hearts race. They had sent word begging for help. But would anyone come? Then on the horizon, a low rumble broke the silence. The dust began to rise, swirling in the burning heat, as armored vehicles appeared, moving with purpose toward the heart of the village. The people rushed to see, expecting the familiar sight of battle-hardened men stepping out to face the enemy. But what they saw stopped them in their tracks. The doors swung open, and out stepped warriors unlike any they had ever known. Women, armed to the teeth, wearing full combat gear, their eyes sharp with focus. They moved with the precision of predators, scanning every rooftop, every shadow, every narrow alley where danger could hide. These were the Lionesses of the Sahel, Africa's first all-women special forces unit. Trained to fight in some of the most unforgiving terrains on Earth, they carried themselves with a confidence that left no doubt they had come to win. Their boots struck the ground with a rhythm that seemed to echo through the hearts of the villagers. To the enemy, it was a warning. To the people, it was a promise. In that moment, fear began to fade. Children peeked from doorways. Elders stood a little taller. For the first time in weeks, the air carried something other than dread. The Lionesses wasted no time. The village chief stepped forward, his voice trembling as he pointed toward the hills. "They're hiding there with our sons." The commander, a tall woman with steel in her eyes, gave a single nod. She raised her fist and her unit split into 3 swift groups, each moving with surgical precision. Through the narrow streets, their steps were silent. They advanced like shadows, weapons ready, eyes locked on every possible threat. A sudden crack of gunfire ripped through the stillness, but the Lionesses didn't flinch. One of them dropped to a knee, sighted her target, and with a single shot, silenced the threat. From the hills, the enemy began to fire wildly, thinking panic would break their attackers. They were wrong. The Lionesses moved as if they had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. 2 flanked from the east, scaling the rocks with ease, while another squad advanced straight into the heart of the enemy camp. The sound of battle grew fierce. Dust and smoke filled the air, the scent of gunpowder mixing with the desert wind. Yet through the chaos, their voices could be heard. Sharp, decisive commands cutting through the roar of gunfire. Within minutes, the tide turned. The terrorists, unprepared for such relentless precision, began to scatter. Some tried to flee into the hills, but they were cut off before they could escape. And then, silence. The villagers held their breath, unsure if it was over. Slowly, shapes emerged from the smoke. The Lionesses walked back into the village. Weapons lowered, faces calm but unyielding. Behind them came the rescued. Men and boys once taken by the enemy, now free again. The people rushed forward, some in tears, others cheering. The commander simply looked around, nodded once, and said, "You're safe now." In that moment, the Lionesses of the Sahel weren't just soldiers. They were saviors, protectors, and a living reminder that in the face of terror, courage can roar louder than fear.